Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes, and here are the three big stories for today. So the first is that the U.S. and Germany are the two nations that aren't supporting NATO's accession at this moment. Like, you would think that it would be maybe Hungary and Slovakia. That's not what's going on. The details, according to the New York Times, they reported that the United States and Germany have not changed their position on inviting Ukraine to join NATO. So this will not happen at the summit in Washington. She emphasized that for Ukraine, the issue of invitation to NATO is on the agenda, and it will be on the agenda as long as it takes until this decision is made. The format of the invitation was proposed by Ukraine itself as a legal guarantee of joining NATO. It's on the agenda. Absolutely. All allies support this, except two. Since this information has become public, the US and Germany are now trying to draw attention to other skeptical allies, such as Hungary and Slovakia, but the key position of these two countries, the US and Germany, is really the key. Let's look at this. This is the actual New York Times article. It looks odd because I got it out of the university database. Okay, so admitting Kyiv is a non-starter with the war in Russia raging, but member nations want to show that they are supporting Ukraine for the long haul. What Ukraine wants ultimately is a formal invitation to join NATO, but the alliance officials agree that it is not going to happen at the festivities planned in Washington in July. NATO has no appetite for taking on a new member that, because of the alliance's covenants and collective security, would draw it into the biggest land war in Europe since 1945. So now you know why they're not doing that or not willing to extend the invitation. That has sent NATO searching for some middle ground, something short of membership, but meaty enough to show that it is backing Ukraine for the long haul, as Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, put it this week. Financing and training for Ukraine's forces were immediately met with skepticism. The United States and Germany remain opposed to offering Ukraine a start to membership negotiations in Washington, as they did in last year's summit in Vilnius. So why they changed their tune is not entirely clear. And they want the issue off the table in July, but they do want to provide Ukraine with specific commitments that they can deliver on. Okay, and then as you go through the article, we see that U.S. Army General Christopher Cavalli is still in command. He was the guy that's been doing this on the Ramstein agreement or format, trying to get these guys together. He's still the guy that's going to be in charge, even if it's NATO in charge rather than the U.S. in charge moving forward. U.S. Army General Christopher Cavalli has been asked to design a blueprint for providing dependable, predictable aid to Ukraine for years to come. Quote, if NATO allies deliver what we should, then we are absolutely confident that the Ukrainians will be able to make new gains, Mr. Stoltenberg said. That's the reason why we must deliver more, why allies need to dig deeper and provide more military support faster, and why we also need stronger and more robust structures for the long haul. An undercurrent to the urgency is NATO's desire to Trump-proof. So they're bracing against the possibility that Trump might become president, and Trump has not been a great fan of NATO, especially those countries that haven't pulled its 2% weight. And in defense of that position, and that's the only thing I'm going to say here, is that many NATO countries haven't been pulling their 2% military budget for NATO or formula for many, many years. And in fact, even as late as last year, about half of them weren't doing so. And so, yeah, but they know now that they're seeing that they can't really rely on the U.S., that they're going to have to do something different than what they've done before. But it's mind-boggling that it's the U.S. and Germany that are the ones standing in the way at this point. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, by the way, was created in 1949 by the United States, Canada, several Western European nations. For what purpose? To provide collective security against the Soviet Union. Like, as the Soviet Union starts to roll across Europe and try to gobble up other countries, this is why NATO was created. This is what your purpose is, guys. Like, you have one job, so execute on your one job, please. Okay, the ISW. This was really interesting. So I reported on the drone strike yesterday, and but there wasn't a lot of information that was clear. The ISW talked about it at some great length. Ukraine's security service, SBU, and Ukrainian forces reportedly conducted one of the largest series of drone strikes against military facilities within Russia, targeting at least 4 Russian air bases on the night of April 4 to 5. Now, from everything that I could detect, at least in the early reports, it looks like they hit something pretty hard in one area, and the others, well, maybe they were shot down. That's what the Russians were saying, at least. But listen to this. Throw out what I reported yesterday, because this adds a great deal of context. The SBU and Ukrainian forces conducted successful strikes on airfields near Kurt City and Krasnodar Krai and Engels Air Base in Saratov Oblast. I didn't know that they hit Engels Air Base. According to the reports, everything was shot down around there. And the Muratovsk Air Base in Rostov Oblast. Now, this was the one that got all the attention. These Ukrainian security sources reportedly stated that the Ukrainian drone strike significantly damaged 3 Tu-95MS strategic bombers at Engels Air Base. That's pretty impressive. Damaged 2 Su-25 fixed-wing aircraft at the airbase near Yesis, so that now we're already up by 5 additional aircraft, and destroyed 6 unidentified aircraft and significantly damaged another 8 unidentified aircraft at Muravzovsk Air Base. Now that's the one we talked about yesterday. The Ukrainian strikes reportedly killed 4 Russian military personnel at the airbase near Yesis and 7 Russian personnel at Engels Air Base, and wounded and killed up to 20 Russian personnel at Muravzovsk Air Base. And again, we only talked about the latter. Everything that I could see showed, well, nothing to see here. That's what the Russians were saying, but apparently that's not the case. Now, the ISW also noted that it's not observed any visual confirmation of that, and that's good reporting. The Russian Ministry of Defense claimed that Russian forces intercepted 44 drones over Rostov Oblast, 6 drones over Krasnodar Krai, and a drone each in Saratov, Kursk, and Belgorod Oblast on the night of April 4th into the morning of April 5th. And that's what I also reported, that they said nothing happened, we shot it down, no problem, nothing to see here. Ukraine, and I also said be skeptical about that. Ukraine's ability to strike 4 separate air bases in one strike series represents a notable inflection in the capabilities that Ukrainian forces are employing in their campaign against Russian military infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and strategic industries within Russia. The way that we've tried to frame this is, look, Ukraine, we're going to give you these weapons, but don't go into Russia. So it's almost like a kid's being beat up at school, and the teacher says, okay, but if you hit back, you're going to get suspended. You can't hit back. Like, if he tries to punch you, you can block it. You can get out of the way, but you can't hit back, because if you hit back, that's bad. The opponent, the bully, is going to keep hitting him if you can't actually hit back. If all you can do is block it or get out of the way, but they're hitting back, and that's what they ought to be doing. ISW continues to assess that Ukrainian strikes against targets within Russia are a necessary component of Ukraine's campaign to degrade industries that support the Russian war effort and military capabilities deployed in Russian rear through asymmetric means. The Russian military had roughly 60 Tu-95 aircraft as of 2023. If confirmed, the possible loss of roughly 5 of Russia's strategic Tu-95 bombers in a single strike would be notable. ISW has also previously observed that the loss of fixed-wing aircraft is not negligible, since Russia likely has about 300 various Sukhoi fixed-wing aircraft. Russian forces are currently using Sukhoi fixed-wing aircraft to conduct guided and unguided glide bomb strikes along the entire front line. So this is really important. This is a really, really big deal. Okay, last story. Arthur Ray was talking about the new commander-in-chief. Syrski has been in charge for almost 2 months. And what's he doing? Well, he's actually doing a lot. And he's not beloved like Zaluzhny was, but he is apparently pretty competent. And it looks like he's making some proper moves. Until now, only 300 of around 1 million soldiers have participated in combat. So there are soldiers to move around. Not everyone's like combat ready, but you can mobilize. Maybe that's the answer for why they are not mobilizing the 5 500,000. Maybe they need a little less. The ongoing audit has already resulted in structural changes within the units, poised to bring further enhancements, and that includes removing incompetent commanders. And now, but the real trick here is going to be this one. The report, this one. Syrski is also faced with a challenge of mobilizing and training hundreds of thousands, all while establishing new defense lines to fortify against potential Russian advances. Okay, so we're talking about Russian advances in the summer, not Ukrainian advances in the summer, because they just don't have the weapons. And, you know, training up this army is a different skill set than actually prosecuting the fight, just like there's a difference between fighting defensively and fighting offensively. So he's got his work cut out for him, but I mean, he's proven himself competent, at least so far. Not necessarily beloved, but competent. Okay, last thing I want to get to is reporting from Ukraine had a quick update. YouTube has reaccepted their Lithuanian translations channel into the partnership program. They had demonetized some of their different language channels because they do essentially the same thing, and then they translate it and put it out there. And so they've appealed, and they didn't hear anything. I was in communication with them asking, okay, what would you like me to do? And we had just agreed, like, okay, I'm going to put out a video, and then that happened. So, you know, I'm glad that YouTube got it sorted out. And then they were reporting from Ukraine was also kind enough to put this out 14 hours ago. Check out these 4 important pieces of news with Professor Gerdes. So thank you to Reporting from Ukraine for the shout out. I appreciate it. Okay, that's it. That's the 3 big stories. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.